Okay, congratulations. If you're watching chapter 41, this is the last chapter in your textbook. So I will, of course, bring this up. We will look at team approach to healthcare together. This also has points in there as far as ALS assist goes. So that'll be something as we get through the IVs and placing the electrodes on the monitor. Want to make sure, again, that stuff you have to be hands-on with. But the first is kind of an introduction to teams and understanding, just like chapter 1, it's a team of healthcare professionals, right? We start you off with that, and then in between you got all that Oreo stuffing with medical and trauma, legal issues. And now we come back just to make sure we remind ourselves that we do recognize, yes, this is always going to be best if we utilize our teams and our partners, and patient care comes first. But that, as well as the addition of keeping yourself safe. There's some examples here as we look at how healthcare teams are changing. The example they're giving you here is the community paramedicine. Community paramedicine can involve EMTs or paramedics that go and respond to, for an example, someone that has diabetes, and maybe they need help managing that condition in lieu of using the hospital or the emergency room as a way to seek that care. So it involves education, but you'll notice down when we look at the teams, there's this continuum of care, right? That's making sure that the same healthcare is always received. We recognize those levels and do what's always best for the patient. The regular teams and temporary teams. So as a regular team, I was with the same partner or crew every time I was working, right? That's that regular team, because you consistently interact with the same people. Here, you know how your partner's going to respond. The partner knows how you're going to respond. There are opportunities for temporary teams. So again, if I was a floater and I'm working or picking up a Saturday shift, okay, I don't necessarily work with that person all the time. But again, we just are going to ensure we still provide that continuity of care. Are there ebbs and flows to this? Does it get harder? Does it get easier? Well, it absolutely does. Just remember, you're all working towards that same common goal, and that is to make sure that good care is provided to your patient and everybody gets home safe. Examples of specialty teams, when you look at hazmat teams, again, this was something I've been a part of. We're a hazmat team, and you're going to set up decon, and you're going to do this, and you're going to do that. But those are just examples of our specialized teams, if you will. It's important to remember that they do have specific knowledge and training, skills and abilities. There's certain equipment as far as harnessing or rappelling when you're using that type of equipment. Again, it's not just something you're going to know from day one. There's additional classes you would take in there. Special event EMS teams, again, that could be working a football game, whether you're the first aid booth or responsible for the field. Bike teams also a special qualification for those as well. Groups versus teams. Again, when you look at a group consistent of the individuals or the healthcare professionals working independently to help the patient, right? So in triage, treatment, and transport, one group is working in triage, one's working in treatment, the other's in transport, right? But that is all there simply to help the patient. I'll just read this for you. A team consists of a group of healthcare providers who are assigned specific roles and are working interdependently in a coordinated manner under a designated leader. So again, if I'm in charge of triage, treatment, or transport, and there's people that are actually going around doing that, respirations, pulse, mental status, right? Just some of the things with start triage. They're, again, going to be doing those things independently, but then one person will ultimately be in charge of that. Again, these will be questions that may arise from that. Again, since we can't answer these questions now, know that we will, of course, give you that opportunity in class when you come in. The essential elements of a group: common goal. Common goal is number one. Teams have common goals. A group is going to have a common goal, but they do recognize themselves as a group. They're understanding that, that continuity, there's good flow as they're working. There's the shared values, whatever that one goal is that we work to accomplish that. And you can certainly have the different roles within the group itself. Dependent, independent, and interdependent. You might want to highlight this or just write down those different definitions. But in the dependent group, that each individual is told what to do and how to do it by his or her supervisor or group leader, okay? And, again, that's fine. But when you look down at independent groups, each individual is responsible for his or own area, right? Just making sure they're taking care of everything they need to. And when we get to the interdependent group, that's just functioning as a true team. Team performance. And again, this goes with any team that's out there, whether it's a sports team, again, team here at the EMT department, the team that you have even within your groups or we should say your squads. Probably started off the year with squads and now maybe some of those are different, but that's an example of how a regular team could, again, give you something different from what you were accustomed to working with. But can you work with all the students in your class? Absolutely. With the clear roles and responsibilities, right? Diverse and competent skill bases and skill sets, just everybody knows what they're doing and what the goals are. The effective collaboration and communication, that is so important, right? The idea about how we're going to lift this patient to the gurney and get them up. Well, is there an easier way? Is there a smarter way? Is there a way that's going to cause less risk potentially to you or other rescuers, right? That's collaboration and communicating that within your team. Supportive and coordinated leadership is so valuable and important, again, because you want to make sure you're supported. That's what really builds that effective team. Communication and team dynamics. There is something called crew resource management, and crew resource management does recognize that, whether you're a 20-year veteran or someone who's been on the job for under a year, that you all bring important value to that team. And when you look at the PACE mnemonic, again, PACE is probe, alert, challenge, and emergency. So again, if at any time something seems unsafe, again, we're gonna, be on the lookout for that, if you will. We're gonna be able to change and adapt. But if one person doesn't agree with what's being done, there's also that ability to challenge that, right? And that whoever that team leader is gonna need to take a look, value what that person has to say, and really make an informed decision. So transferring of patient care, and when you do transfer the patient, and this could be the rescue team that transfers the patient to you, or you transfer that team to the hospital, that is an opportunity where patient care errors can actually take place. So general guidelines for the smooth transfer and the transfer of care, it's just, again, you're making sure that that critical care is always uninterrupted. Right? I can't stop bagging the patient while I give my 2-minute report about what was happening. Minimal interference, of course. It is, and it has to be a respectful interaction. Right? Remember, we're all on the same team here. The common priorities, that should be the patient. But then notice the language or system also should be common, right? I don't want to use this term versus that term if that's not what is generally accepted within the system itself. BLS, basic life support, and advanced life support working together, right? This is a paramedic working with an EMT and vice versa, but you cannot have one without the other. And BLS efforts are always done first before any ALS care would be offered. So that's always going to continue while you're working on that patient. This is kind of neat as well, that what you may consider here a paramedic only skill, in this system, may be something that an EMT in a different region is actually able to perform. And yeah, I'll just give you the example of the IVs. IVs here will not typically be started by EMTs, but in other parts of, I could say, the state or even the country, that's something that's done by them as well, by the EMT. Assisting with some of the ALS skills, so getting the patient ready, that preparation, ensuring that the equipment is ready to go. The actual performing of the procedure will be done by the paramedic, right? This is an assist. This is basically keeping the paramedic, on task and in line, because might be thinking about something else. And then, of course, that continuation of care. So, but there's some different types of ALS that we'll look at. One of those is the advanced airways, the pre-oxygenation for the patient. And notice it says pre-oxygenation, not hyperventilation. Pre-oxygenation just ensures that before that tube attempt is actually made, that we've ensured we've given that patient that good high quality oxygen, hopefully close to that 100% via a bag valve mask. The equipment gets set up, and some of the advanced airways, again, using either a Miller blade, which is a straight blade, a Mac blade, which is more of a curved blade. They both have different, end goals of how you go into that airway and actually open it up. But again, those are things we'll have an opportunity to at least show you, kind of see the intubation process and what that actually means. At this point, I hope intubation means putting that tube actually down the trachea, the base of the carina, so as you ventilate, you have good equal rise and fall of the chest. But and I was trying to figure out how to pronounce this. Maybe I'll call it bumagakik. Okay, that's just when performing these advanced airway procedures, bumagakik. So perform BVM. This is the pre-oxygenation, just typically using that bag valve mask. Evaluate for airway difficulties. Maybe there's more of a posterior sitting airway versus anterior, or the real short neck, or there could be some trauma that's been taken to that portion of that person's airway. But manipulate the patient. And again, when we're dealing with pediatrics, maybe a towel under shoulder helps propel that airway forward and becomes easier to visualize the vocal cords. That's what it means by manipulating the patient. Attempt the first pass at intubation. Again, as it's swept in, you have that stylet in place. There's a supraglottic airway, potentially the King airway. Again, whatever's available if that intubation is unsuccessful. So it's something to fall back on. That again, you would always revert back to, I can't get the tube in. Well, let's at least bag that patient, because you need to make sure they're getting the oxygen. And then confirming the tube placement or that intubation. So the way I was taught is we listen to the epigastric sounds just to make sure that you're not funneling air into the stomach. We check good rise and fall of the chest. And again, if you're putting that in right down the trachea to the carina, if you squeeze that bag, you should be see good rise and fall of the chest. You can also consider pulse oximetry. That's what it means by the, monitor those readings. Are we seeing improvements in that? Are we truly indicating that there's oxygen exchange for the patient? And then see if there's any complications of that. There's a tube lock that goes in place, and that should be kept in place. It is possible for the tube to move, so you want to watch the millimeters at the teeth and make a note of that, because when you transfer a patient or move them, or now you put them from the floor onto the gurney and they're on the spine board, did that tube get jarred? And that's why you mark the millimeters at the teeth. Vascular access and setting up for IVs. Again, as far as positioning the patient and equipment, making sure you have the right catheters there. Obviously, we want to tell the patient what's going to happen. A lot of people have had IVs, but if it's new to that person, we want to explain, yes, here's a pinch to your arm. We're going to get you that fluid, potentially medication is administered through that. But again, comfortable and calm on your patient, always letting them know the process and what's going to happen. As far as equipment setup goes, again, something you'll have an opportunity to see and potentially even practice is spiking the bag. That's again, when you put the bag into the IV, you make sure that you've got all of that air that's rushed out. So you have a nice clear tube that's full of the saline solution that you're going to utilize. Or I should say that in this case, the paramedic is going to utilize. Stabilizing the patient's limb, providing comfort to the patient. Again, just making sure they keep their arm straight. And anytime they move, if you put it in the AC, it could be considered positional. So they move, there's a flow of blood that now you start to see coming in that tube. Just make sure you extend that arm out. And so whatever's coming into that bag, it's also gravity fed. So if it's kept down below the point, then you will also see blood backing into that. Again, it's not alarming. You just have to elevate the bag so it can continue to flow in the patient as it should. The continuing care, and again, if the EMT has started, or I should say if the paramedic started the IV, it's most likely he's going to be the one in the back with the patient. But you're looking for things such as infiltration, bleeding from that site, could be leaking, and that's just part of the little cath that you can tighten up there. But again, EMTs do a fantastic job of keeping paramedics out of trouble. So again, we're all just on that same team. So just correct something if you can. Don't be afraid to tell anyone. Last part, troubleshooting the team conflicts, just any conflict that you would have, but always recognizing the patient comes first, right? We don't want to fight in front of the patient. Don't engage. So another way to put that is don't pick up the rope, right? If, you know, it's kind of hard to have that tug of war if one person refuses to interact with that. I'm not saying interact, but you're not engaging in that negative behavior. You're cool, you're calm. It's just part of what you do every day in this job. Separating the person from the issue, meaning if this is someone you haven't typically gotten along with, you know, what is the issue, right? What is it that you're actually fighting about? And then we move down to choose your battles. Again, that just goes with anything. I am very happy that I was able to give you lecture number 1 and also the last lecture that you have. But remember, it doesn't stop here. There's still National Registry Test Prep and FISDAP and getting your accounts all set up with the computer. It is potentially set up in a manner that the fall class may actually see the same video, but for the COVID spring people that have stuck with it, again, congratulations to you. You started taking the test in one manner, and now it's completely different, and modifications that we had to make to your practical skills testing. And you've been fantastic guinea pigs, and we all wish you the best in your future endeavors. So thanks for sticking with it. You guys have definitely earned something in this class.